Have you ever wondered why a woman who once texted you good morning every day without fail suddenly goes silent, and when you ask why, she replies, "Nothing's wrong." You feel it, don't you? The air changes. Her eyes don't light up the way they used to. Her body is near, but her attention is cold and far. And you sit there, trying to decode the silence, thinking maybe you did something wrong. Maybe you should fix it. Maybe if you say the right thing, she'll come back to how she was before. That's how it starts. Not with a scream, but with a pause. And that pause, it's not confusion, it's not distance, it's control. You're in the middle of an emotional chess game and you don't even know the board exists. Most women who understand their emotional influence don't attack you head on. They don't need to. Instead, they pull back. Not because they're truly hurt, but because they know you'll chase. It's the withdrawal of warmth that makes a man question himself. That makes him reach harder, give more, beg for a connection he once had without effort. That's the first manipulation most men fall for, and it's terrifyingly subtle. 1 week ago, she laughed at your dumb jokes. Now she barely reacts. You ask her if she's okay, she says she's tired. You offer to give her space, she doesn't stop you. And here's what happens next. You feel guilt for something you didn't even do. You think, maybe I wasn't affectionate enough. Maybe I should have texted her first. Maybe I'm not good enough. She hasn't even accused you of anything, but you're already on trial, and you're sentencing yourself. Let me ask you something direct. Why is it that the moment she pulls away, you start working harder? That's not love. That's emotional conditioning. She didn't punish you with anger. She punished you with distance. And most men, especially good-hearted ones, respond to that with over-giving. They try to win her back. They write long texts. They plan dates. They apologize for tone shifts they didn't even cause. And do you know what she learns in that moment? She learns this. If she pulls back, you'll chase. If she gives silence, you'll beg for sound. If she stops giving love, you'll pour yours in double. Congratulations. She doesn't have to meet you halfway anymore, because now you've taught her how to control you without raising her voice. Here's the part that hurts to admit, but you have to see it. The man who tries too hard to keep a woman emotionally happy becomes invisible to her. Why? Because a woman doesn't fall for a man who needs her mood to feel stable. She falls for the man who holds frame when the weather changes. So when she withdraws, you don't chase. When she gives you silence, you don't fill it. When she offers coldness, you offer calm, not panic. That's your weapon. Indifference, stillness. And the quiet question in your eyes, is this who you really want to be? Now listen, I'm not saying be cruel. I'm saying don't reward emotional manipulation with more effort. A woman who loves you won't test you with silence. She'll speak to you. She'll tell you what she needs. She'll argue. Yes, but she won't vanish just to see how far you'll crawl. If she does that, you're not in a relationship. You're in training. Training to become obedient. Training to second-guess yourself. Training to keep her attention like a dog begging for scraps. And the moment you accept that dynamic even once, you've lost all leverage. But here's how you take it back. The next time you feel her pull away, do nothing. Don't reach. Don't react. Don't perform. Just notice. And wait. If it's real, she'll come forward. If it's a game, she'll escalate. And when she escalates, that's your cue. That's when you look at the pattern, not the apology. That's when you measure her love not by how sweet she can be, but by how she behaves when she's not getting her way. Because love isn't just passion, it's discipline, it's emotional integrity. And if she doesn't have it, your job is not to fix her. It's to protect yourself, not from her anger, but from the version of you that keeps sacrificing his self-worth just to keep a smile on her face. You've done that before, haven't you? Be honest. You've over-explained, over-apologized, over-invested just to stop her from slipping away. You were scared to lose her, but in the process, you lost something worse. Yourself. Let's fix that. Have you ever done this and didn't realize it pushed her away? Tell me what happened. What's the hardest thing you've faced when trying to keep a woman interested? Drop your story below. Which mistake do you see yourself making the most? Be honest in the comments. You probably thought that if you just loved her harder, more purely, more patiently, she'd come around. You assumed the problem was you, that maybe you didn't understand her well enough. That maybe if you were softer, more emotionally available, more present, she'd stop playing hot and cold. But let's stop right there. That belief that more love will fix manipulation is the very reason you're vulnerable to it. You were taught to fight for women, to prove your worth, to be consistent, loyal, stable, and that's noble until it becomes self-sacrifice in the face of disrespect. Because here's the hard truth: emotional manipulation doesn't survive where standards are enforced. It thrives where guilt exists. She doesn't need to insult you to get what she wants. All she has to do is pout, stay distant, say I'm fine with that tone, you know the one. And because you're emotionally invested, you take the bait. You give her the upper hand. And once she knows you respond to emotional discomfort by trying harder, she doesn't need logic or reason. She can simply make you feel uncertain. That's her currency, not love, not connection, but uncertainty. Let's take a common scenario. Maybe you've lived it. You're texting her, everything's fine. You make plans, she seems excited. Then out of nowhere, she cancels. No reason, no follow-up, just can't make it tonight. Maybe another time. So you wait. You ask, is everything okay? She leaves you on read. You double text. Apologize if you were too much. You scroll back through your last messages, trying to find the exact moment you messed up. That spiral right there, that's the trap. Because now you've handed her the frame. She doesn't need to fix the distance because you're doing the emotional labor for her. And here's the part that twists your mind: she might even come back the next day, sweet again, like nothing happened. She resets the game just to see if you'll keep playing. And if you do, you just confirmed her power. This is what you must understand. Emotional manipulation isn't always malicious. Sometimes it's instinctive. She doesn't even fully realize she's doing it, but she's been conditioned to believe that emotional withdrawal equals power, and in most cases it works. Because most men never learn to recognize it. They confuse unpredictability with passion. They confuse mood swings with depth. They confuse control with intimacy. But you're not here to be confused anymore. You're here to see clearly. And what you need to see is this manipulation doesn't always look like drama. It often wears the mask of softness, delayed replies, emotional distance. I just need space, followed by sudden warmth when you pull back. It's a dance. Push, pull, warm, cold, smile, silence. And unless you interrupt that pattern, it becomes your prison. So what do you do first? You remove the reward. When she withdraws without explanation, you don't chase. When she punishes with silence, you don't beg for noise. When she flips the emotional switch, you don't play electrician trying to fix the wiring. You wait, you observe, you see it for what it is, a test. And you pass that test not by reacting, but by holding your frame. Let me give you a story. There was a guy mid-30s, good man, high-value job, emotionally available, thoughtful. He dated a woman who constantly played the ambiguity game. 1 week, she was all in. Next week, she was confused. Whenever he stepped back, she came close. Whenever he leaned in, she backed off. At first, he thought it was timing, then compatibility, then something he had to fix in himself. Until one day, after she cancelled plans for the 3rd weekend in a row, no reason given, he didn't respond. No anger, no paragraph, no cold shoulder, just silence. 3 days later, she messaged him, "So you're just gonna ghost me now?" And that's the moment it flipped. He replied with one line, "I don't play games with people I care about. No insult, no blame, just truth." She never reached out again, because the game only works if you agree to play. And if you're brave enough to step off the roller coaster, you'll find peace not in controlling her, but in refusing to be controlled. That's how you outsmart emotional manipulation, not by outplaying her, but by refusing to be moved by her shifts. A calm man is unpredictable to a manipulative woman. She can't figure out if she has power, and that confuses her, maybe even draws her in. But the moment you react emotionally, the moment you abandon your frame to chase hers, you've lost. Not her. You. You've lost your stillness, your self-trust, your dignity. Let's take that back. What was the last time you overreacted to a cold message or a change in tone? Drop the exact moment in the comments. Have you ever had a woman test you with silence? What did you do and how did it feel? Do you think silence is a strategy or an honest response? Tell me below. Let's talk about one of the most dangerous forms of emotional manipulation, the guilt trap. You know this one. It starts small, harmless even, but it coils around your mind and tightens every time you try to stand your ground. You say no to a plan, she sighs, withdraws, maybe says, "I guess I just wanted to spend time with you," but it's fine. You tell her you're tired and can't talk tonight, she says, "I just needed someone, but I'll figure it out." She doesn't attack you, she victimizes herself, and because you're a man with a heart, it works. You feel bad, you cave, you overcorrect, you rearrange your day, you silence your needs, you start trying to make it up to her for simply having boundaries. That's the trap. She doesn't demand, she implies. She doesn't criticize, she hints. She doesn't say you're a bad man, she just makes you feel like one. And you don't even realize it's happening because it's wrapped in emotional vulnerability. But there's a difference between vulnerability and manipulation. Vulnerability says I'm feeling a little hurt, but I want to understand. Manipulation says I'm fine. I guess I was wrong to expect anything. Maybe I just care too much. It's all designed to place the weight of her happiness on your back and dare you to shrug. Let me make this tactical. Here's what to look for if you express a need, a limit, or a change, and her first response is to guilt you emotionally, withdraw affection, or imply you're selfish, you're dealing with covert control. And here's the rule: any love that cannot tolerate your no is not love. It's control wearing makeup. So what do you do in that moment? You don't explain, you don't justify, you don't fold, you reflect. You say, "I hear that you're upset, but I'm allowed to make this choice, and I'm not going to apologize for that." And then you go quiet, because a man who can't sit in silence is a man who can be moved by guilt. But a man who can sit in silence, who isn't afraid of her withdrawal, who doesn't flinch when she pouts, that man becomes a storm she can't shake. Remember, this guilt is a manipulation that uses your goodness against you. That's what makes it powerful, and that's what makes it cruel. Let me give you an example. There's a guy, we'll call him Nate. Nate's dating a woman who, every time he wants time to work on his business, responds with, "I just wish I mattered as much as your career." He explains, reassures, sends flowers. He cancels meetings to prove himself, but it never ends. The next week, same pattern, because it's not about the action, it's about the control. So one day, Nate tries something new. She says the line again, "I just feel like I'm not a priority," and instead of explaining himself for the 100th time, he says, "Then maybe you're with the wrong man." Not in anger, not as a threat, as a truth. And for the first time, she didn't know what to say, because the guilt script only works when the man fears losing her. But when he stands in that fire, when he lets her walk, if she must, she realizes he won't be led by shame. You want to outsmart emotional manipulation? You have to be immune to guilt that you don't deserve. You have to love with a full heart but with eyes wide open. And you have to remember this law. A woman who uses guilt to test your love does not respect your strength. She fears your independence. So don't trade your backbone for her smile. Don't abandon your values for her approval. Don't build a relationship where her discomfort is your command. You're not a servant. You're a sovereign. The moment you start centering her emotional waves over your solid ground, you stop being a man and start being a sponge, absorbing, soaking, pleasing. And one day you'll wake up in a relationship where your needs no longer exist, only hers. And you'll wonder how it happened. It happened because every time she pushed your boundary, you made it a door. Every time she cried, you crumbled. Every time she pulled away, you begged. But not anymore. Now you see it. You feel it in your chest. You've been giving too much, apologizing too often, bending too far. It's time to reset the scale. What's the last moment where guilt made you give in even when you knew you shouldn't have? Be real with me in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where her pain made you abandon yourself? How did you get out, or are you still in it? Tell me your moment of awakening, the time you saw it for what it really was. Drop it below. Let's get deeper now, not into what she does, but into what you do to yourself in response. Because this is where most men lose the game without ever realizing they've stepped onto the board. She says something vague, something cold, something indirect. And you, the man who once knew his own worth, begin to shrink inside. You start doubting yourself. You ask, what did I do wrong? You replay every word, every message, every look. You try to solve her silence like a puzzle. But here's the ugly truth, not every silence is meant to be solved. Some are designed to make you squirm, to bend you, to soften your stance until it's no longer yours. This is where emotional manipulation turns inward. It no longer requires her actions. Your own mind starts doing the work for her. You begin editing yourself. You start saying less, asking less, even wanting less. Because you don't want to mess it up. You walk on eggshells, but call it love. You stop asserting your needs, but call it being understanding. You feel uneasy all the time, but label it emotional investment. And slowly, piece by piece, you disappear. Not because she forced you, but because you thought that being more agreeable would save the connection. Let me break it to you. Brother, agreeableness does not build desire. Compliance does not earn respect. And fear of conflict does not secure love. In fact, the more you try to avoid triggering her discomfort, the more you teach her that your emotions are disposable and hers are sacred. That's not love. That's imbalance. And women, even the good ones, will lean into that imbalance if they learn they can win without effort. It's not evil. It's human. People will test your boundaries not because they're bad, but because they're there. So what's the strategy? You stop reacting to the storm and start becoming the mountain. Let me give you something simple. The next time you feel like you need to explain yourself over something small, stop, breathe, wait. Let the discomfort burn through you without extinguishing your center. If she pulls away, you hold your energy. If she makes passive digs, you've changed. You're not as sweet anymore. Don't try to fix her perception. Just say, I'm becoming more of myself. That should excite the right person. Because the moment you chase her validation, you're no longer the man she was drawn to. You're the man who fears being misunderstood. And here's a bitter pill. Women don't stay with the man who explains himself the best. They stay with the man who respects himself the most. You want to outsmart manipulation. Here's how you notice the pattern. You don't explain your soul just because her mood shifts. You keep your frame. even when it gets lonely. And that's where 90% of men fail. They confuse stillness with rejection. They think, if I don't say something, she'll leave. But if your silence drives her away, she was already halfway out the door. Real love survives space. It doesn't demand constant performance. It doesn't punish authenticity. Let me tell you a story. Marcus, early 40s, stoic, emotionally mature, starts dating a younger woman, fiery and charming. She's intense, passionate, but she uses mood as leverage. When he doesn't text back in 5 minutes, she sends wow or guess, I'm not important. When he prioritizes work, she pouts, drops emotional hints, and acts cold. One night, he's late for dinner because of a last-minute investor call. She greets him at the door with silence. They eat in tension. She doesn't look at him. He pauses, then simply says, "If your love comes with punishments, I'm not interested." She snaps back, calls him emotionally unavailable. He nods, stands, pays the check, walks out. No anger, no war. Just one man refusing to reward a game with engagement. 3 days later, she calls, crying, apologizing. He answers calmly and says, "If you want a man who reacts to silence with panic, you'll have to find someone else." And she knew, right there. He wasn't bluffing. That's power, not in domination, but in discipline, because a man with boundaries is rare. And a man who enforces them calmly, that's almost mythical. So here's your assignment. Start paying attention to when you feel the need to fix things. Notice what emotion drives it, fear, guilt, loneliness. Then pause, don't act, just observe. And slowly you'll reclaim the power you've been giving away in the name of connection. Because the truth is, connection without respect is addiction, and love without boundaries is submission. So, let me ask you, when was the last time you felt yourself shrinking just to keep her close? What's one moment where you said yes, when your gut screamed no? How many times have you made yourself small just to make her feel big? Be honest. Drop it in the comments. There's a quiet kind of man that women can't move. Not because he's cold, not because he's playing a role, but because he's done breaking himself just to be understood. He doesn't yell, he doesn't chase, he doesn't beg for clarity that should be given freely. And that man, he doesn't get manipulated because he's no longer available for it. That's where you're going. That's what this entire awakening is about. You're not here to play defense against games. You're here to become the kind of man who doesn't need to defend himself at all because he sees the game before it starts. And let me tell you something brutal but freeing. If a woman needs to test your love through punishment, silence, guilt, or confusion, she does not feel secure within herself. And if she doesn't feel secure, no amount of reassurance from you will ever be enough. You cannot heal a woman's insecurity by bleeding your masculinity for her approval. Read that again. You cannot sacrifice your edge, your ambition, your time, your boundaries, and expect her to magically feel loved enough to stop testing you. She doesn't want more of your love. She wants to feel your spine. So how do you win? You stop trying to win her and start keeping yourself. That means you don't tolerate ambiguity. You don't negotiate with passive aggression. You don't play along when her communication becomes cryptic. Instead, you meet it with stillness and a mirror. She's being cold. Don't react. Mirror it. Match her pace. She's using guilt. Don't absorb it. Call it out, gently but clearly. She's testing me. Don't perform. Stay centered. Let her sit in her own storm. Because the moment she realizes you don't need her comfort to feel whole, that's when her manipulation starts to unravel. You see, the foundation of emotional games is this. She believes you fear losing her more than she fears losing you. Once that flips the game's end. Now, don't misunderstand. This isn't about becoming cold, cruel, distant. That's reaction. That's just the same game in reverse. This is about neutrality, about being so grounded in your standards that even her prettiest smile or her most teary silence can't pull you off your path. Let me leave you with one final story. There was a man older now, early 50s. He'd been through 2 marriages. The first, he spent his whole life trying to keep her emotionally happy. The second, he tried to prove he wasn't like her ex. Both ended with him feeling small, drained, forgotten. After the second divorce, he stopped dating for years. People thought he'd given up, but he hadn't. He was rebuilding. He told me this over coffee once I stopped trying to find someone who wouldn't hurt me, and I started becoming someone who wouldn't tolerate being hurt. Simple, unemotional, powerful, that's your path. You don't become a master of women. You become a master of yourself around women, because at the end of the day, she doesn't break you. She just reveals where you were too afraid to protect yourself. So protect yourself, not with walls, but with presence, not with aggression, but with truth, and not by playing her game, but by walking off the board. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect. Right now, maybe you're remembering moments where you begged for answers you shouldn't have needed, where you gave love hoping it would fix silence, where you felt like you were always chasing a moving target. That ends today. Not because she's changed, but because you're done being a version of yourself that bends for connection and breaks under pressure. From this point on, you don't chase, explain, or over-invest. You observe, you measure, and you choose. She's not the prize. You are. Now, tell me this. What's the one emotional game you're never gonna fall for again? What's one sentence from this video that hit you the hardest? What would you tell your younger self before he gave in to her silence? Drop it below. Let's rebuild your standard together.